What's going on, guys? Making this quick video here just to talk about some of the stuff that I recommend to everyone for learning UI in Unity and how to make any UI look amazing. So without further ado, let's get into this. Tip number one is if you guys are aiming for mobile, what I recommend to do is just immediately right when you get the project downloaded, switch that over to Android or iOS, either one. And once you get that switched over, you'll be able to just hop right over here, close out of that, open up your game scene, and you'll be able to just set the aspect ratio straight to the phone you want to deploy for. I'm going to set mine to portrait, and we can see it's set in that mobile phone's scale. So we can easily see how we want this canvas to look. The next and by far most important point I'm going to make this video is understanding the anchor system that Unity uses. And it does take a bit of time because it is kind of confusing. But once you understand it, it really is not too bad to use. So if you're going to see right here, when I click on this object, you can see these little triangles in the middle. Now those are the anchors. Those are the points that the object is anchored to. And you can see that they're all touching each other in the middle. So I could expand those out in different locations. I can actually click and drag each one. And so the way that this works is these objects are always going to be this percentage of this percentage in the screen, this percentage location of the screen. So this 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, 0.5 means every corner is going to be the exact middle of the screen. But if I were to drag this out, then these anchor points move. And so the way that these anchor points work is that every corner, as that anchor point moves around, will be the same distance from this point to from every corner will be the same distance from itself to that anchor point as the canvas moves around. So what you're going to want to do is put these in a location based off that. So like if we wanted this object to be always in the middle of the screen, we would put 0.5 and then we'd put 0.5. And there is a more efficient way of doing this, but I'm going to do it like this just for now, just so we can see that, see them move. 0.5, 0.5. And this one's going to have to be 0.5. So now as this screen scales, and let me see if I can get this game view up. As this screen scales, it's always going to be that same size, no matter what. And that's helpful for a lot of situations, but sometimes you want it to stick to certain areas. And so another thing that you might want to do is maybe you want it to stick to the top. And so what you could do now is you could stick this anchor point at 0, 0, 0, 0. That's the bottom left. So then we'll stick the Y's to 1, 1. And so now what it's going to do is it's going to stick every single corner is going to stay that distance away from their connecting anchor. So now as I scale, it's going to stay in the bottom left. And so by moving these points around, you can get your canvas to scale properly. So now what we're going to do, and there really is no one-size-fits-all solution to getting it to scale properly. It does take a lot of time and stuff, but let me zero this out so it's right back in the middle of the screen. And let me show you this here. So if you click on this right here, you can manually, or you can set the anchor points quicker than dragging them all to a location or typing it in. What you can see is all of these red dots are the points that are the points where the anchors are going to be. And so this one here, this would set the anchors to the middle of the screen. And what this is going to do is it's just going to make it only scale the width. It's not going to scale the height. It's only going to scale the width because all of these corners are staying that same distance away from those anchors. And so what a lot of people do is do this here. So if it was like this, then it should scale properly or no matter the screen size, is what you might think. But quickly as this scale changes, you could easily run into a situation where your points are negative, where there is no screen anymore. So a solution to this problem of the problem of making this object always stay this same size on the screen, like let's say you want it to be able to be way bigger and you want it to be the same size. but you also want to be able to break it way smaller, and it would be the same size. And the solution to this is actually a script I've got on my computer, and I'll leave the download link to the script in the description. But you're just going to drag this script in, and I'll just put it in my assets. You know, if this is a real project, I'd probably have somewhere better to put it, but I'm going to put that in here. And actually, I already had it in this project. Yep, I do already have it in this project. I'm going to delete that now. What you're going to do once you drag that in is you're going to have this bar at the top called uGUI. Once you have that bar at the top, what you can do is select your object, and you can click anchors to corners. And what you're going to do is, if you can watch over here, if we watch this object over here, when I click uGUI anchors to corners, what it's going to do is going to put the anchors exactly in the corners of this object. So now, as we scale this screen size out or down, oops, let me get that down, it's always going to be that same percentage of the screen size. Perfect. That is exactly what we want for this menu. Now, if we want those inside objects to scale with it, all we got to do is select each one, and we just need to select. Actually, what we could do is, if you select all of them, you can press Control and then left bracket, and it's going to automatically do it. So select them all, and then Control left bracket, and you can see now as I select through them, all of their anchors are set to the middle of, or all of the anchors are set to their corners, which is exactly what we want. So now if we scale this down, it's going to scale. And now you can see the stars aren't going to scale, and that's because the parent object is scaling down, not the stars. So what I do is here, if I do this, if I press Control left bracket or come up here and do anchors to corners, what you're going to see is they're going to scale down properly. But there's another thing. So you're going to notice that they're going to not remain their perfect resolution. They're going to sometimes be way taller than they are wide and way wider than they are tall. And the solution to this is actually a very neat component called scalar constraint. No, not scalar constraint. It's called aspect ratio filter. And so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to add that onto the component, and you're going to select either width or height. You're going to select or fit parent or develop parent, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to select width. And so as the width of this object changes, I want the height to be the exact same of it. So I'm going to put 1. So it's going to be 1 means the height is always the exact same as the width. If I put 2, the height would be always twice as big as the width, and vice versa. So if we now shrink this down, we can see that those stars are always going to be their right aspect ratio. And now no one's ever going to be playing on a monitor like this, so you don't have to worry about situations like this. One more thing I'd like to mention about the scaling is that if you go up to your canvas object, you'll see this canvas scaler. Now this also affects how the anchors move around. So this scale with screen size will scale the entire object as the screen size goes or expands out as well. So whereas the constant physics, actually it'll be easier to see this if I actually select this object and set all of its anchors to the very center. If you guys can see, the anchors are now, and this is the parent object. So now that the parent's object's anchors are the center, none of these corners are going to move around. And because none of those corners are going to move around, all of these child object anchors are not going to move around. So that's also, I guess that's also something important to understand, is that the children's anchor points are based on their parents and not on the overall canvas. So as you can see, all of these children are anchor points are set, but as this scales around, it's going to stay the same size. But what I was saying here is that if you have, and we'll go here, we'll go to the canvas scaler. If you have scale with screen size selected, what's going to happen now, even though this has its anchor points set in the center, as I drag this out, it's going to grow with the screen size. It's going to shrink with the screen size. So it does pretty much the same thing that we were just doing, but kind of automatically. So if you want that to happen semi-automatically, then that is also an option. And the way that it works is based off of this example resolution. So if you can see here, if we were to change this example resolution, and or we could also change that height controls width or width controls whatever. So we could have it set to actually just exactly 0.5. So both of them control the same amount. But another thing that you might want to do is update this resolution here. So this is the example resolution that it starts with. So if you're working for mobile, it's best to set your screen to a certain resolution and then set that same aspect ratio in here. But that is the basics behind the anchoring system that Unity has. For the last point on UI that I'm going to be making in this video, I'm going to show you guys how to scale text with the size of the screen. And so for this, I'm going to be using TextMesh Pro. I also highly recommend everyone using TextMesh Pro. It makes the text look way, way better. It's provided by Unity. It's a very simple asset. If you just right click, you can actually just go to UI and just add TextMesh Pro text. It's going to have you import it, but that's all right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make this scale. I'm going to make the text scale properly. So to do this, I'm going to show you guys that I am currently on the constant pixel size, and I have this object's anchor point set to the middle of the screen. So it's not going to anchor at all. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to anchor these to corners. And so without this auto size on, what's going to happen when I scale this is that text is going to stay the same size. And you can see it looks pretty weird once you get in kind of the extremes in certain directions. But what we want to do is we want it to not go on its a second. We don't want the uWin to go on a second line, and we want it to the text size to grow with the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it back out until it looks just fine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of the text on this scene, and I'm going to click this auto size button. And you can see that these kind of look a little bit different. They are now a lot bigger, but what just happened is the area in this text object, the text is always going to fit that exact area. And so now when we scale it down, it scales down properly. And sometimes you'll see that it is bigger than it needs to be. And that's just because of this minimum and maximum that it says. So right now I have in this one I have it set to 0.999, but in these, the minimum and maximum is, you can see 18 and 72. So those are the minimum font size and maximum font size. So if I set this to 0 and this one to 99999, now you're not going to want to do this in a real project, but you can see that it will no matter what fit that area. And I think that these ones don't have. Sorry, I set that to the wrong number. I couldn't figure that out. Okay, so if you set these all to 9999 now, instead of what they were at, it'll always remain that same size. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like this kind of stuff, be sure to subscribe, get notifications of my next videos. Also, if you guys wouldn't mind leaving a like, that'd be very nice. And any comments you guys have on suggestions you guys want to watch in the future, then be sure to leave those comments and I'll be sure to get to those. But until then, guys, thanks for watching.